What's up, friends from work? As promised, this Monday, my boy Tom Green stopping by to the office. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Friends from work. That's you and me.
Yeah, that's really kind of how we came up with the show. Michael Dean's from DBL, obviously Tori and I. Here you are. It's just like these are like who your dad used to be on the phone with at 7:30 at night. You'd be like, "Who's my dad talking to?" Laughing.
Work.
Yeah.
Talking to work.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's nice to see you.
it's great to see you. How you been? What's going on?
I've been good. I stopped doing the news, but I've just started doing one podcast, and there's another one brewing. So I may be joining you in the podcast, or I guess I already have.
Well, yes. Well, tell us the name of the podcast. What are you guys talking about?
Well,
what inspired you to do it? After all these years of talking, you were like, I'm not done.
I'm afraid to say it the way I usually say it, but the other Tom Green show just started last week, and I had my old friend Ron Zappolo, who's a legendary Denver sportscaster, on as my first guest. Vern Lundquist, another legendary sportscaster, is going to join me this Thursday in studio.
I've always said Vern Lundquist has one of the most melodic voices.
No doubt.
It's just like something that you're just born with, and when everybody hears it, they like it. He just has that.
I was afraid to do it at first, though, because I don't consume podcasts all that regularly, and I always was under the impression there are plenty of them already.
There's only like 5 or 6, I think. Let me check. I'll check on that. Michael Dean.
It might have gone up 1 or 2. But so they came to me and said, no, we'd like for you to do a podcast. And we came up with a concept initially of talking about Denver sports in a historical sense, talking about the present, but maybe talking about things that people, if you were born, after 1975, you might not have known things that happened here. And so we talk about that. And then as we started to put it together, while that may be the backbone of it, we'll talk about whatever. I mean, I want to delve into mostly focusing on Colorado, whether it's entertainment, politics, but I think sports will be the backbone of what we do, because I had that long career as a sportscaster before I jumped over into the news chair.
Right. Well, I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense, because I think when you say, well, we're going to be talking about the history of Denver sports, you think that you're going to kind of just wall yourself off to a certain age demographic, and that's all who's going to watch. But look at Netflix now. Look at the documentaries that are coming out. They're about things that happened in the late 90s, early 90s. Even the last one I watched, Amy Bradley is missing, about the woman that's missing off the cruise ship.
Right.
That happened in the late 90s. But if, like you said, if you were born after 1975, that's all new to you. You never saw like The Girls Next Door with Hugh Hefner, and there used to be a show where a 90-year-old man had 9 18-year-old girlfriends, and it was just on television.
That's why it used to be normal,
right? And it was yes, and like, so I think there's the market for that is huge, because there was this world that existed before people got here, and I think people want to know a lot about that, and I think it makes things in the present make a lot more sense.
Well, those things that happened before I was paying attention still fascinate me. And I like to think that there is an audience of any age that would like to know about some of the fascinating things that happened even before they were paying attention, so to speak. So that's, like I said, that's the backbone. You got to be relevant to the present. I mean, you and I are going to talk about stuff that's going on, that's happened in the last 48 hours, last 72 hours. It's now, it's new, it's all that sort of stuff. And we'll be doing that on this show. But I think mine, I really, having worked in television for many years and radio for a few, I always said my favorite job was radio talk show, because it's a conversation as opposed to a monologue. And when you're doing the news and you're the sportscaster on the air, you're talking to the audience. I like talking with the audience or having conversations. So you get to say what you want to say, but you better be listening too. It's
absolutely
important.
Yeah. And I think that's the best podcast. And I think that's why Tori and I decided to do another show underneath Daytime Talk After Dark. Is she and I are like a buddy cop film. Like, we don't make sense on paper. It's an old black guy from Cleveland, it's a comic, and this younger Jewish woman that does improv. But we just work together. Our backgrounds are different but similar. Both our dads were attorneys. We've kind of had this kind of weird life that always seems like it was kind of barreling towards each other.
And it is this much performative. This is how you guys are all the time.
All the time.
This is 24/7 when you and Tori are together, and I've been around it. That's just the dynamic. It's fun. It's good to be around. I like when you guys are together. All
right. Well, before I get started, I just want to ask, because it's something that I'll never experience. What was when you decided to stop doing the news and semi-retire? I stand on this, that people that love what they do never really retire. You always kind of consult, work part-time. If you
Right.
love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, as corny as that sounds. But what was the first day or two like when you're like, I don't have my schedule that has just been locked in this brain? Like, what did you do? What were your thoughts?
It wasn't that hard, because one of the reasons I wanted to stop, besides my advanced age,
No, stop.
and I've been doing it for years and all that, but I've also felt that over these last 6, 12 years, whatever you want to set a time at, the news became harder and harder to do. In the most serious of veins, when you're live on the air during the Aurora theater shooting,
Oh no.
when you're live on the air during the wildfires in Boulder, became fascinated with studying the human condition, meaning my own. I know people were having a tough time dealing with these things, but I always felt that there was this split, this dichotomy. You're live on the air, you got to keep it together. You can't be a robot, though. People have to know you're affected by what you're hearing. You have to process incredible amounts of information and find a way to distribute it. Whereas if you were just sitting at home, you could just sit in a corner and cry.
Right.
And you can't quite do that. So I found that these stories, the school shootings, the hardest of stories, came at an emotional price that I wouldn't, like other people would begin to process as they happen. And I always had to wait. And I'd noticed 2 or 3 days later that I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good about anything. And it was me delayed starting to process some of these tragic stories that used to happen, I felt, every year or two. And now they happen every week or two.
Every week or two.
And it's relentless, the drumbeat. And now you add into it the constant politicization of anything. Anybody says anything, it puts you either here or here, and there's no middle. You're either this or that.
Right.
And everyone sees you that way. And so when you read every story, someone is assessing, what that story does to them and how they view you and how they view their friends. So leaving for me became a little bit easier because I was okay not doing that. And when you work on the air doing the news, you have to consume the news constantly. You have to always have your finger on the pulse. You always have to be listening and looking and thinking. And so when I stopped doing it, one of the things I was looking forward to doing was not becoming someone who consumed the news all the time, that I would slow down. If I wanted to get away for 4 days and shut it down, I could get away for 4 days and shut it down.
What I'm hearing is like a guy that wants to live life, and that is so crazy,
right?
So weird. You just want to enjoy this life we've been given rather than argue about inane topics. I am saying this so tongue-in-cheek because I am so jealous of you. I miss and just have a nostalgia for pre-internet arguments when were horrible things happening. Yes. Look at history. Every section of it is marred with corruption and murder and all the things that come along with human beings. But everybody didn't have this assigned personality that they had given themselves,
right?
Where they're the kind of person that is ready to wish ill upon your family because the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle jeans ad, they have a different take on that. And it's like, my dad's been passed for 10 some years now. And I just think about how great it was for him to just look at that commercial and be like, oh, it's a pretty girl selling jeans. When does the baseball game come on?
Right.
He will not have to spend 4 hours arguing, responding to comments in all caps. He just can move on, and the freedom from that. I think that's so great. And I'm glad you did that for yourself.
Well, yeah. And I luckily, I feel bad because I know a lot of people who are 30 or 40 going into this industry. And the industry that I got into in my 20s and always wanted to be in was a different industry than it is now. And you could look down the road and see a future and see the shape of the future. It doesn't mean you'd be right. But now I genuinely am concerned about the mutation of what I got into, and it's changing. And it doesn't mean it's worse, but it's very different. And it's something that I don't think I'll miss. I haven't yet. I do like people who do the news. I understand all the people who put the effort into presenting the news, and I know it's a really hard job. So I don't begrudge anyone. I just needed to not do it all the time. And so I gravitated back towards my real love, which has always been sports and covering sports. And that's why we drifted towards that podcast we started, and we'll see what it becomes. As I told the folks who came to me with it at Guerrilla Sports, they said, we'll start, and the first show and the 10th show probably won't look a lot alike.
Right. Absolutely.
It's going to change, and hopefully in a good way.
Yes.
But it's going to grow.
And well, the great thing about this medium, and we'll get started with the stories in a second. First of all, shout out. What's up, colleagues? How y'all doing? Marcy, Lucy, ELC. I see y'all in the chat. The best thing about this medium is there's a lot less of a filter. So your love of sports and your interest in that, it comes through. There's not a lot of stingers and, noises to distract you and cutaways and cut back ends. It's just like when you're talking about something that you give a shit about.
Yeah.
The people understand and they will come. And even if they don't, at least you can say I talked about something I cared about.
Right.
I don't know if I'd want to. And you can see people that have made a lot of money in areas where they're not passionate about it. You can see how their disdain for the topics, for the fans, the people that truly like it, as opposed to the people that got into it because it's something they love and they're passionate about.
Yeah, well, there's probably nothing more weightless than the Sydney Sweeney jeans discussion. More important things include, the Bengals-Browns game yesterday.
I can't talk about that right now. Why would he bring that? Look, guys, we were having a good conversation. This Browns fan was sitting at the Rockies game. Just how did we lose that game? And it's just like,
at least you didn't watch it, because that would have hurt more.
It was bad, and it's just like I had shows this weekend in Boulder, Colorado, and I just said to the audience on Saturday night, "Are we sure that the Cleveland Browns are not a Ponzi scheme? Because you just give them money, there's just like the return is not there. But sports is this thing, especially I think for guys around our age." Whereas the first thing you could talk to adults about, the first thing that you had to talk to your uncle about.
You presume a connection and a common knowledge, not the facts are common, but you can have opinions,
right?
So it's sports always work for me.
All right,
always work for me.
Well, let's see what's working for the rest of the country. We're going to get into our first story, and this is speaking of stingers that we're avoiding. I made these, so I'm very proud of them. Let's get to our first story.
Production.
Oh, thank you. I made that. That's
nice.
One of those things I started doing during the pandemic is making music and cutting videos. And my son was really into it. And again, speaking about, it's interesting. I got into sports to find things to talk to the older, especially men in my family about.
Right.
And I got into video production and music to talk to my kids.
Yeah.
Because it's something they were interested in. So
that's well done. It looked great.
I wish they were into investing. I would have learned something about that. All right, well, Tom, let's talk about it. The Supreme Court freezes the LA stop limits. And they say in a news report, the court let immigration stops resume in Southern California, while a lower court had ordered that they be on hold. Dissenters and everybody with eyes see definite risks with profilings. What do you think about this?
Well, you obviously have two issues. One is the actual act that's going on in places like Southern California, and then you have what is and isn't happening with the court. I think a lot of people thought the court would work as some form of barrier to President Trump and some of his more extreme pushes towards his own policies, but we haven't seen that. So I think as much as this impacts in a dangerous way many people who live in Southern California, it also, I think, accelerates the president as far as him trying to continue to push boundaries and feel that he could do what he likes and that the court will not stand in his way.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I have friends that lived in New York during stop and frisk, and, I don't want to quote the statistic because I would be off, but it was something about like the number of kids that were stopped in a certain square block radius by Giuliani and his policies. And it was definitely in the hundreds of thousands over the course of a couple of years. And we look at these stories in the macro, you look at it and you say, well, how many cars divided by how many officers? But I think about my kid who's 17 or my younger son who is on the spectrum. Stopping people especially when you declare yourself to be a person of the law or an official of the state, is terrifying for a lot of people. Then you put on top of that people that are a little bit more aggressive, turn around, put your hands up, maybe put their hands on you. It could permanently put somebody else on a track with their life that they might not have otherwise been on. I had a bad interaction with a police officer. I was able to recover, but I know friends of mine that didn't. There's anger there, there's fear, and sometimes when they actually do, they won't reach out. And it just seems like a policy that it's going to piss your citizens off. It's going to put your police in risk as well. Those are human beings that want to go home as well. And every car you stop, that's another chance for you to have a very negative interaction. A lot of citizens are armed. A lot of citizens are angry. Some citizens are criminals. Some people are you don't know as a cop. And I have my best friend's brother is a cop.
It's not just police.
Yeah.
Either. That's the thing. We're now talking about from the National Guard to, whoever is currently employed by ICE, and this license to, use nothing but their own eyes or their own ears to determine who is or may not be in our country legally. But it's also, you see what's happened in Washington, what is being threatened in Chicago, and what you're seeing in Los Angeles.
I'm very worried about Chicago, by the way.
Yeah, and it'll be, it used to be things might go off the rails, and they always do. And then you wonder about how history writes the story, 10, 20, 50 years later. But I think now that the world spins so much faster that you may never get to history. Right. That it's already too far down the road before anybody, with the breathing room can write the story to explain why this was or wasn't something that should or shouldn't have happened.
Right. I just, before we move on, I'll just say as somebody with a background in science, I just look at probability, and you have American soldiers on American streets with hot weapons. You have frustrated, angry citizens. Invading areas, invading countries is not difficult. What's the difficult part is the suppression and the occupation. People do not want to be occupied, and we've seen that throughout history on very small and very large scales. You can invade a failed state. We were able to do that in Iraq, but the problem is staying there. The people don't want you there. And when a group of people don't want you in your home, they're going to let that be known. And we saw with all the time that we spent there, as soon as we left, like, what do we have to show for Iraq and Afghanistan? And to a much lesser extent, I'm not comparing Chicago to that situation. I'm just talking about human beings and how human beings feel when you come into their home. If somebody was in your house, some guy saying, "Hey, keep it down out there," you would lose your mind.
That's the thing, because you always talk about every bad interaction you hear about involves that moment where the escalation, and it could have been de-escalated. It could have hit an exit ramp, and how and why it happens. And this will, in likelihood, be an escalation and followed by more to come. So yeah, I'm with you. I think these are dangerous times.
Right. I just and also I was just in Chicago earlier this summer doing shows at the Comedy Bar. Shout out to Sahar and all those guys out there. Chicago is such an awesome city.
It is.
Oh my God. Every time you go to Chicago, you're like, what is this place? There's like great live music. You could eat yourself to death. There's a ton of stuff to do. But it's got a friendly Midwestern vibe.
Yeah.
I just dig that city. So yes, leave our beautiful city alone. All right, let's keep it moving. Michael Dean, I want to talk about the CBS Watchdog. They've hired an ombudsman. I hope I'm saying that right. Kenneth
Ombudsman.
It's almost sounds
But it used to be a friendly topic. Somebody who was supposed to manage relationships between, say, a company and a consumer.
Right, like an outside third source.
And hey, let's calm down, and we can make this work. I can help you, and I can help you. And
okay, I'm gonna read the story, and then I'm like, you of all people may have had direct experience with this. So CBS hires a watchdog to check their bias. I just want to make sure that's clear. Kenneth Weinstein, ex Hudson Institute CEO, is named CBS News ombudsman. I just say it fast, with a mandate to review coverage concerns to check and see if they're biased. So in your years of working news or working for a news station, is this a regular practice to hire an ombudsman?
I wouldn't say you did like to have that relationship between you and viewers, but I don't know if you needed to hire someone. I would say the question of bias is one that is always at stake in every story you do, from the smallest stories to the biggest one. Doesn't mean you get it right. I mean, obviously all humans have certain biases and the like and see things through their own lenses. But I think you're always challenged to, when doing a news story, make sure you are at least aware, if you don't want to put on the other person's shoes, at least aware that they have shoes.
Right.
Know that there is a different perspective, understand where they're coming from, try to measure and weigh other angles and looks at a story before you basically cast it out as though it's been factually checked out by a professional news organization. So I don't know about CBS doing this. My guess is CBS News already has people who live and work in the editorial concept to understand what is and isn't a biased story.
What do you think would lead, because this is, so do you think they were getting complaints from viewers, or like somebody from on high was looking like our program's a little bit biased? And to follow up my own question with an even bigger question I've been wanting to ask you, is bias necessary to really sell news now? Because if it seems like shooting the facts straight, there are places that are like, this is what happened, date, time, facts, number of people arrested, and the arraignment's here. But it seems like when it comes to news, people want to hear it more like, this happened Friday because our school systems are out of control. They want the bias or the curved nature either way to how that news is taken in.
That's at best the gray area, because the news is what you described first, and then when you start leaning into why and telling people that what's going on and this is triggered by something, as opposed to a broader view at how this all happened, then you start sliding into an opinion show,
right?
And that's where we get into the I noticed it because as I got older, Sirius XM. So it used to be when you and I would listen to the radio, AM or FM, depending on your age, every few weeks, new songs would come along, and the station would take you by the hand and say, okay, now this is big. Now this is big. And I know it's marketed and sold and all that, but at least you were growing, you were gravitating, new music was changing. So now as we get older, you get the Sirius XM and you just pick your flavor. I'm going to live in 1986.
90s on 9.
Or I'm just going to listen to the Grateful Dead, or I'm going to listen to, and I'm just going to stay in my happy place. And with news, people consume the food they want. If you want to listen to Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, whoever you choose on a national level, but they also deliver numbers.
Right.
People watch, so advertisers follow, so money chases. It's all great. But whereas we used to think that news was pretty factual, straightforward, Walter Cronkite, John Chancellor, Harry Reasoner, boom, boom, boom. The news was the news. Then I don't know if it's fair to call it the news. And I think that's kind of the argument. And then the need for someone like an ombudsman to talk about, if we're biased or not. It sounds like he's got a good job. I would have looked into his job.
Right. Well, he gets paid $250 a month.
$250,000?
$250,000, which is way different. I would work for $250 a day. He's getting paid $250,000, $250,000 a month, and he works for one day, which I think that's a decent gig.
It doesn't. Is it $250K a month or a year? But I know he works one day a month.
It's one day a month. Is it a year or a month, Michael Dean? Okay, $250 a year, works one day a month. Okay, we got that together.
12 days.
12 long days.
So it's only 20,000 and change a day.
Can you come home to your partner and just like throw your keys on the couch and be like, woo, you're working me to death.
9 hours today.
9 hours.
I was ombudsing all day.
I kept telling them what they were doing wrong. They would write it down. Then I would tell them more things. Then it was lunch, catered, lobster, again. It's such a wow. Where was that on job fair day? Yeah. I just I wonder if we always talk about the news or sports or anything that people love, art, music, in this way that, like, well, this is what happened. This was, and I think maybe that's the one thing that does separate sports from other things is you're like, the Denver Broncos won the game yesterday. That is not up for debate. And right. I wonder if that's almost the only thing in our world that, for the most part, besides, conspiracy people, will everybody agree that happened. They may have different reasons as to why.
Facts and stats, but big opinions. Sports has always been wide open for opinions.
Right.
And you do gravitate towards people who share your opinions. But I think I don't think as many people hate watch as people used to hate read. There'd be the one columnist in town that everyone used to read to hate. And there's the other one that people may have read because they loved his writing and he was more of their mind. But you read probably both of them. That's why they were getting big salaries and on the front page of the sports section.
Right.
But, I think sports and opinions have always been a really good marriage.
Well, I mean, and for those sports columnists that were edgy and had a take, a lot of those guys actually ended up being on the forefront of these kind of sports argument shows where you and I can't sit on one of those shows and say, I think Tom Brady played well tonight. And you're like, I agree, Al. Yeah. Coming up next, now it's got to be Tom Brady is the worst quarterback. I don't know. You have to take a side and have a take that he should never play football again. He should not be able to say that word for 6 months. It's got to be extreme. And I'm wondering, are we judging the people delivering our news, our sports, whatever our commentary that we're looking for? Are we judging them for really what is an inherently human flaw, almost, that we can only take in information that kind of startles us to agree one way or the other, but that's the only way that our ears are kind of perked up. Otherwise, it just washes over us.
Yeah, I think we're all being judged as soon as the camera and the microphone go on, or as soon as you hit send on your keyboard, you're going to be judged.
Right.
And I think it's more fun for people to dislike than to like. And I know from getting feedback from viewers.
Totally agree with that.
I think every critical comment, and obviously some people catch me on things and nail me, and I'm like, sorry. But critical comments weigh 10 times as much as positive comments in your head, in your heart.
Right. Definitely.
Someone says, hey, great job. You go, okay. Someone says, you stink. It's like, yeah, maybe I do.
Well, yeah, it's that thing. It's like they always say with restaurants, if you have a great restaurant, somebody will tell 2 people. If they had a bad experience at your restaurant, they'll tell 10. Yeah, exactly. It's just a weird way that kind of human beings are. Yep. Yes, a little bit of flaw. I did want to ask before we move on, this is just for me, how much of your commentary could you give on a story? So, like, let's say there was a school bus strike, and it was in day 111. If you just go at the end of the story, you're like, day 112, let's hope we get this together. This is ridiculous, and this needs to stop. Could you even say something like something is ridiculous because you're taking a side?
Yeah, there are a couple of different avenues I've taken on that. I did a 4-hour morning show, so there's a lot more room for commentary. Right. But I also tried to, like I said, I always had this wonderful thing in my pocket that was instilled in me by the rest of my family, is that I don't know everything. Turns out they were right. So when I express myself, whereas, you have many people on TV who are 100% certain they're right, and so they know what they're doing and they tell you, I always tried to presume, there could be a flaw in my argument. So with that humility, I would at times weigh in, but never too far, because I think if you do that on that strike story, say, I think people move you. They go, oh, he's here, or he's here. And then when you do the other story about the bridge repair, they go, well, I know where he's coming from.
Right.
And it's like, no, you don't. I don't have anything on the bridge. I'm just telling you there's a bridge being repaired. So I always was very selective and cautious, if you will, about how much I ever really shared about my opinions. Now, sports stories, I obviously felt a little more, and there's more room in that. But in the news business, I was very wary of indicating too much because I thought it would have a broader and longer impact than you might think at the time.
Right. Well, that makes so much sense, and it explains why you had such a long career, because you can't just be milquetoast either.
No,
you can't. You gotta, like, people have to know who you are because you're in their living room, you're in their head every day, and so they have to invite you in. So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Mostly use humor,
right,
as opposed to a biting comment. I mean, unless it was something that was just had to be said, I was far more likely to maybe just make a smart aleck comment and say we'll be back with the weather.
Exactly.
Move on.
Exactly, and make a little fun of yourself, a little self-deprecation, just
Sure.
like letting people know you don't know everything. It takes their guard down too, because maybe even they were like, this guy knows. And once you're like, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just saying, here's how I make my shrimp boil. It's, just like everybody, we're all just kind of floating around trying to figure it out of here. All right, let's get to one more story that I was in the short respite that we had as we ran the main story. I was telling Tom just how exhausted I am with this Epstein story, but also how I think once we get the aerial view, the 30,000 feet view of the story, maybe 5, 10, 15 years later, I think we're going to be shocked at what we see and how far this goes. But as it says now, Representative Massie says that justice should not spare powerful men, which I agree with. While the House Oversight Committee expects documents from the Epstein estate, possibly including the birthday book with all those cards we saw. So do you think when those are released that there should be names redacted, there should be situations redacted, or do you think everybody is fair game and nothing should be redacted as they begrudgingly release these files that they're being so weird about?
Yeah, I guess we learned this about most conspiracies and most crimes, even, is when you hide stuff, it increases the intensity of the public's need to know. This story, I think, hits pretty hard, as hard as pretty much anything, because this involves a lot of people who were violated, and you have a guilty plea from a dead man, and you have a conviction of a woman, and the idea that it wouldn't be released to me is a little bit alarming. I mean, I don't think people have yet grasped some sort of rational concept as to why it wouldn't spill out. And of course, with the specter of AI creating so many things that may or may not be true, if they ever decide not to, or they figure out how not to release this, it's going to come out. It's going to come out. So if I was advising someone, I'd say get in front of it, call for it to come out. And if it means you lose your job, or if you get in trouble or something, at least you'll have had the dignity to say, yeah, but I thought we should release this information to the public and let people know who and what and all that. I don't know many people who are thinking this needs to stay quiet. And that select few may be people whose names may or may not be redacted, as you said.
Right. Yeah, I just think that it can't come out. I think the list of people on that, and there's just the people we know are probably involved. If they're just the tip of the iceberg, I don't think that there's enough public pressure to have that released. I think they're just going to sit on it. It's been years. They've been caught red-handed, embarrassingly so, lying, things that couldn't possibly be true. We see these. The only thing that could possibly, in my mind, turn this story on its head is if the accusers completely take the reins and they say, we're together, we're going to speak together as a unit.
Last week they tried to, at least in Washington.
That was the first time, and it hadn't hit me. I was like, wait a second, why are we waiting for congressmen in Vermont and Idaho to decide to come back from summer break? These women, these accusers, have obviously the names. They've talked with each other. I mean, if myself and you and everybody that worked at DBL and 9 News, we all talked about, who was a good time to hang out with, there'd be a couple names. We'd be like, I love that guy. He was great, people that are in the same circles know these names, and the way that those people would have to get out of it would be to have to prove that they're not on the Epstein list, which they would then have to release the Epstein list in which they would appear on that. So it's going to be difficult to be accused of it and prove yourself innocent unless you're actually not on it. And that would cause people to release the list. And that's the only way that I could see, other than these people just kind of disappearing from public sight after they're credibly accused.
I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think people just want to see their enemies on the list.
Yes.
But you're going to find you might find a hero or two, or someone you really admire, someone you think is a great actor, or a ball player, or billionaire that you think is, it sounds like it's a vast enough list that it wasn't about politics. It was about money and power. So politics, that line never existed. Whoever had the cachet to be in that little in the know group apparently, may have been a part of it. So
yeah, I think we're about to see DEI in a way that we never did. It's going to be a diverse group. They're going to be equally gross, and they're going to be invested in covering each other's asses, because I don't think this is going to be particularly political. I think this is going to cover people from all over. And it just kind of makes sense when you start talking about people that have more money than God. You can't bribe them or coerce them to do things you want with money. So the next thing you need is something that you know about them that they don't want getting out.
Yeah.
And this is the oldest time, really.
Well, you think of like Whitewater, Watergate, all these things, then those were driven by politics. There was money, there was power at stake. And it was something that I think, one of those things that used to more exist inside the Beltway. And those stories broke out because they involved presidents. But they never achieved this breadth where you talk about entertainers and all these other people. And that's what the Epstein list has done. It's kind of permeated the entire country's news scope. So it'll stay there. It's not going away.
Now that I have you here, I do want to ask you, because I've had these thoughts, and I feel like if I am guilty of a way of flawed thinking, it's just like we need to get rid of that. But I look at things like the modeling industry and the child beauty pageant industry, and I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of the colleagues that watch our show have their kids in that. It seems like it's good for self-esteem in certain areas, but it seems as if a lot of these bodies function almost solely, if not primarily, to groom, separate young women from their source of family or power, and take them somewhere where they are then used in whatever fashion under the guise of we can change your life. But a lot of these modeling industries have been proven to be just kind of pipelines for young girls, 13, 14, 15, taken out of their country, taken away from their parents, even if they stay in the country. And, once they're locked away somewhere, like what power do they have?
I did a story on a football player who was in a car accident. And I remember the surgeon who worked on his brain talked about his recovery, and he talked about a person's sense of personhood, that awareness of who you are. And I could see that being something where you take that from someone when they are, if you want to go as young as 8, 9, 10, 11, child beauty pageants on up through mid-teens and into young teenage years. They're told what they're supposed to do, and then they are shown how they can succeed. And a lot of that doesn't include what most girls, men as well, I assume, of that age are being told about how you grow and how you become. So I don't know enough about it, to be honest. I mean, we've had, I've worked with, in the news business, several pageant winners who've gone on to newscasting, wonderful women. And of course, here in Colorado, it all comes up, the JonBenet Ramsey story,
right?
The piece of that very young girl who was in beauty pageants. And it was something I don't think before JonBenet Ramsey's story broke that I knew that girls that young were pageanting, if you will. So that was the thing that got me. And I don't know if it was that exact story, but our colleagues know
that for years, even when we were on DBL, I was just like, why would a 5-year-old need to have a bikini on? Like, walk me through the steps and get me there. And I'm very non-judgmental of whatever you like. I love, if your thing is I love to garden, or I love to identify different snakes in the wild, or bird watch, or whatever, I don't care. God bless you. Whenever there's a situation where my brain that is very open kind of squints its eyes like, what are you guys doing again?
Yeah.
I just think that requires a little bit of extra investigation, because I'm not religious. I'm not judgmental. I don't care how you identify, as long as it makes you happy, whatever. So this one, I was just always like, why does a 6-year-old have on rouge? What is happening? It's a very strange to me. And
Halloween, fine.
It's coming up.
So wait, I got to ask you, because you reference your colleagues. So these are colleagues. Are our colleagues the people I actually know, like people who work with us, or our colleagues or viewers, listeners?
Our colleagues are the people, they're viewers, they're watchers,
but
also like our colleagues as well. I guess it's kind of like our people I work with. And, when I reference our colleagues on the show, it's so interesting when you talk to people that watch DBL for 6-7 years and then have been Daytime After Dark and then Friends from Work. These are people that have been listening and looking at you for 8 years and probably have a as good or better, like they'll look and just like, Tom's not feeling the story, even though you think you're approaching it the way you do every story, and you're being professional, but it's just like, no, he doesn't set up like that when he's doing something he really likes. Like they know you in a different way. And so it was really interesting. At the end of the show, we had on this this woman who was a body language expert, and she broke down the episode that she was watching when we announced that we were going off the air. And she said it gave me chills, because you just think, I was just like, I'm going to be professional and like shows come to an end. And she was just like, when you guys came back from break, Al was sitting up straight. And I've never said, first of all, that seems very unprofessional. Al was paying attention and listening and being respectful to his coworkers. I knew something was wrong. But yeah, it's just like, I value their input and the things that they write, because they have been in this arena with us too, just in a different vantage point.
I've been in Denver 40 plus years on the air, and it's probably the first 25 or 30, you'd meet people and say, hey, I saw your thing last night. I say, yeah, thanks. A very nice interchange. But then as you get older, when people come to you and approach you and say, hey, I saw this last night, or I appreciate something you did a while back, or whatever, it's a whole new level of appreciation, because you finally mature to the point where you believe someone actually invited you into their house every day.
Right.
Every day. They could have put on anybody, and they chose you, and they put you in their house. And when you finally understand what that means, it's like, that's really cool. That I thank you very, very much for doing that, because otherwise, half the time, you do the show, you forget that people are watching. Right. And you realize, there's a lot of people watching.
It's just really interesting you say that, because that was one of the things that was the final kind of Kickstarter in terms of me when I decided to stop drinking, because I'd been a comic, and I always viewed myself not as a clown, but like, I'm the fun guy. Like, I'm in Tampa this weekend, have a drink, go on stage, we're having a party. And I approached the first year on DBL like that. I was still more of a comic than I was a talk show host. I was like, this show's going to get canceled. And, because, you do a ton of shows, and some go 2 seasons, some don't go a half a season. And as the stories got more and more serious, it's funny. Not funny, but that's the wrong word. But you referenced the Aurora school shooting,
the theater shooting,
the theater shooting. For me, there's a couple that stand out, but the Thousand Oaks shooting in California, which sadly wasn't even one of the bigger ones, if that's a disgusting term to use, but there've been so many. I think people think Columbine or Uvalde, but I just remember watching a father giving a news conference, and he just like, he couldn't talk, and he just like, he made this like guttural noise into the slew of microphones, and it was something that like almost like a wolf would give. It's so hard to explain,
right?
But I was like, this is serious, Al.
That's the
what are you doing?
The very, very core of human nature.
Yes.
That's before language, that's just all your emotions in the tiny little center of
absolutely.
You. Wow.
Absolutely. And that noise that he made stayed with me ever since that day. And I was just like, you're not some goofy comic that can come in here and charm your way through an hour and go home and hit happy hour. I stopped.
Well, you could be, but you could also be much more. You
right.
had more to give, more to offer, and that developed through the show. You became much more of a broader, more capable co-host. I thought it was great.
Well, thank you. And I mean,
evolution.
part of that has to do with like a lot of what you're saying. Like, wait a second, these people are like taking their time to watch me. As corny as that sounds, I'm like, you about to get my best hour. And that's how I feel now when I go on stage and I haven't been drinking. It's like, it's you and your partner's time to drink. This is your Friday night. I'm at work and you're about to see my show.
Right.
You know, and
that's
so
great.
Like my mentality kind of switched over, and just hearing that you had that same moment where it's not this like, oh, thanks for watching, but like when you go, I really appreciate taking you could do anything literally now. And you chose to listen to me, so you're gonna get the best Tom Green, Al Jackson that you can get. All right, I am blabbing, but we have to let's get to this pastor really quickly. And no, I want to talk about Michael Dean. I want to talk about the baseball really quickly. All right, so let's talk about the Phillies Karen. That's right.
Yes.
So I was at a baseball game yesterday talking about this. So if everybody doesn't know the story, the internet got to work, and I'm sure you guys know about the ball snatch clip that blew up. Can you briefly explain your audience? Okay, first of all, Michael Dean, that scared the hell out of me. I was not ready. Thank you for having that clip. I remember you told me that we had it. So, Tom, what did you take from that interaction, and just like, why do you think it blew up? It's a close second to the Coldplay Kiss can.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I always think about is I remind myself all the time how lucky I was to grow up before everyone had a phone. Every dumb thing you do now is going to find its way to the internet, and then every now and then, whether it's Coldplay or baseball Karen, it's going to find its way in front of way too many people. So if the ball goes into the stands, you were at the ball game yesterday. If the ball goes into the stands, people scramble for it. Somebody gets it, others don't. He got it, the dad got it, and she felt it was hers because it was probably felt the player hit it to her. I've
been trying to figure out, like, why did she feel so entitled?
She might have had her hand on it, but it's just nobody's thinking about whose hand. If you ever scrambled or seen a ball go into the stands, all you see is the ball. You reach, you grab, you get it or you don't. And it's like I said, it's of zero importance without the camera, without the virality of it. It's probably happened 25 times in this season, and 25 times every year, where somebody gets into a skirmish over who did or who didn't have the ball.
Right.
But she got caught.
That was her ball in her mind.
Well, we should say the Phillies did a nice job with the man and his family. They got to meet some of the players, even the players. I think Harrison Bader gave him a signed bat. I presume he was the one who hit the ball.
Right. So
it's not like Sydney Sweeney's jeans. It's not that important. But it's just stuff that fills and entertains our day, because we spend our day staring at the phone, and we wait for this to happen. We wait for Coldplay. We wait for baseball Karen, and when they come, then the memes come, and then all the stuff comes, and now you see the blueprint for the evolution of this. She got famous. She got and then someone will do something tonight, and that'll be off, and we'll be moving on to the next thing.
You should hope. That as a person, one of my favorite. I love the show Veep, and the first episode of Veep, the pilot episode, was one. She said a word that you should not say is the vice president, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to bury the story. And one of her idiot handlers go, "I don't know. maybe Tom Hanks will die. And everybody's like, that's so dark. But he was like, that's all we've got, like, to get it out of the news. And if you think about the Coldplay kiss cam, that was in the news for like a week. That was like, we covered that like a few weeks on Daytime Talk After the Dark. People were like mimicking. It was just like, if you don't have anything to take it out of the news, after a while, like, those people's lives got ripped apart.
Who was the politician? I can't remember. It was West Virginia, but he got caught having an affair. He was going to South America with his girlfriend when he said he was going out walking around the Appalachians or something.
Oh, man, I know you're talking
about. But he did that. And when he finally came clean, it was the worst timing ever. He came clean. It was the biggest story ever. And if he'd only waited about 12 hours, Anna Nicole Smith died. And nothing else mattered. He could have announced it 12 hours later, and people said, "Yeah, whatever. We're focused."
Dirtbag politician.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing, like what, and just kind of dumb luck because whether it's the Coldplay kiss cam or the Phillies Karen, there's a part of you that's like, yeah, she was being an awful human. But what's going to? These people have to leave their jobs. They're starting to get death threats. Their kids have to leave school. Like, I think you and I will laugh at this and never think about it again.
Right.
But a couple psychos latch on and they're just like, the Coldplay infidelity represents something in their life, what their dad did to their mom. And they take it to a place where a lot of times these people have to move. I think both of them had to quit their jobs. And, infidelity is gross and reprehensible and repugnant in a lot of ways. But also it happens quite often.
So I always think about this because I've had it happen to a friend or two of mine where you get famous for all the wrong reasons. But I always like to remind other people about these people who I think I know better than what they are being accused of or seen doing or whatever it is. You can't judge us all by our worst moments. If you judge someone by your worst moments,
but it's so much easier, Tom. It's like that's easy.
No problem.
Right.
But if you know someone and, who knows, she might be the best. And this was her worst moment. And then that's the one that the world sees. And all we know about her is she was enraged over nothing, felt entitled about something that wasn't hers, and was furious that everything didn't go her way. And maybe that's who she is, too. I don't know. Right. But I'm just saying we got to be really wary of judging people by their absolute worst moments, especially when they become famous in them.
Absolutely. And it's just, before we move on quickly, I can't believe we're going to, I could talk to you forever, but, we look at, this woman or Coldplay kiss cam and you make your judgments, but then you have a young woman like the Haktua girl.
Yeah.
Who
I didn't follow that one as much.
You didn't need to.
Yeah.
You can kind of understand through context what she's talking about. She was seemingly drunk in the middle of the day talking about oral sex on television. It was a 7-second clip. She now has her own crypto coin. She made the rounds on every A-list. She did Bill Maher's show, has become a multimillionaire from a conversation that I would think would be considered a lot more untoward by the general public, at least what they would say. But she is beloved for like her honesty, whereas I don't think a lot of us are honest about like, the couple cheating at the Coldplay concert. That one
has a little more depth to it as far as judging someone, because obviously that wasn't, they just met at the concert.
Right. Yeah. So things happen.
The other
Coldplay's really good.
The other girl, I think it's important, as I like to add to many stories, we wish her the very best.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's with a varying level of sincerity.
Yes, good luck to her.
Adjustable.
Good luck to her and
that's my bless your heart.
Yes, we wish her the very best. You just tee off. Yes. All right. Well, I wanted to ask you before we go any further, I get to play one of my favorite stingers here.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yes. All right. Thank you. We are talking about famous people, and that means we're talking about Howard Stern.
Okay.
All right. Now, there's been a rumor that his show is going away. First of all, do you have any history, any background with Howard Stern in terms of being a fan?
Not a big listener. I mean, I'm ultra aware of who he is, of course. He's one of the, when they do the all-time list of broadcasters, famous, infamous, but he's part of the changing scope of broadcasting.
Absolutely. Well, he hit that shock jock market hard, but also was able to come out of that after the shock jocks were kind of wiped away.
And lasted.
Well,
His interviews are great.
He's a great interviewer.
Yeah.
People open up to him in a way, and I think because everybody feels a certain comfort level with him because they've heard him for so many years.
He's not afraid. If you're thinking he's not going to ask me that, he'll ask you.
Right.
He'll ask you point blank.
Right.
He's very impressive as an interviewer. Yeah.
Well, we thought we were going to lose him. It looked like there were some illusions. Obviously, SiriusXM has been backing up a dump truck full of money for years. And, as this contract comes to an end, people were saying that, they're not going to pay him that contract. I don't know if anybody will ever get those kinds of contracts anymore. It seems like almost a thing of the past. But, unless you're Hawk to a girl. But, Howard Stern said it was a prank, and they're in talks with SiriusXM. So do you think that
his prank was that he made it sound like he was leaving?
Like they were leaving.
Was it today or
right
yesterday? Yeah.
But he said that they're in talks with SiriusXM and he's going to continue. Do you think that they're just some guys that are never going to, he just loves doing radio? Obviously it's not about the money, because at this point, what would be pushing him? Because a lot of people are like, if you don't give me my initial number or more, I'm not coming back. But it doesn't seem like he's going to be pushing that hard. I
don't know. It seems like he's still every bit as engaged as he always was. I mean, you think about what it was and what it is that he's doing now. Everything has changed, but he succeeds. He seems to be well prepared for everything he does. I doubt he works all that many hours a week.
Yes.
And, when you talk about making that money, I wonder, if he's going to take the SiriusXM and they carve that out and make it into, a podcast like yours worth millions of dollars.
Just like this one.
Exactly. It's almost the same.
All right. Well, let's talk about something that we both love to talk about. Let's get to some sports.
Oh, geez.
Really quickly.
Okay.
Obviously, the Chiefs, they lost their first game. I want to ask you point blank, and I'm kind of scared now because he is part of Swiftie Nation, but do you think that Travis Kelce is kind of done?
I thought he had a bad year last year by his standards. I thought he looked okay. I didn't get to stare at the game Friday night in Brazil, but I saw a couple plays he made where he looked more like the 87 of a couple years ago. I thought last year he looked, like athletes look as they draw towards an end. You start to lose that half step, and it takes. You see an NFL game. I mean, half a step is a mile.
Absolutely,
in pro football,
and people just will not give it up. I love to see these and I'll always get them off of my YouTube feed and say I'm not interested, so I stop getting them. But you'll always get those Travis Kelce fell off. It's what do you think he's going to play forever? Michael Jordan fell off, I guess. Yeah, his career ended. It's there's this gotcha culture. You only played 12 years and had 4 All-Star. It's people stop doing what they do at some point. That doesn't mean they fell off. It just means their body no longer functions like it used to.
In that line of work too, it's not like quarterbacks. You saw Tom Brady last a long time, but that's a job where you don't get hit as much. You're playing tight end in the National Football League. When you get the ball, people come try to kill you. So we'll see. I'm curious to see what becomes of the Chiefs. Obviously, here in Denver, the Broncos think they're better. You add in the AFC West, the Chargers, even the Raiders are going to get better. So I think the road gets tougher as your team gets older, but they still have maybe the best coach in the league.
Absolutely.
And if you want to argue about the best quarterback, because last night, those two guys, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, put on a show.
That game last night on Monday night was fantastic. And I will just say this, my girl and I were watching that game in this room. And when it was 40-25 in the fourth quarter, we switched right over to Love After Lockup. And we were watching people fall in love post-incarceration. And I'm checking my group thread number. All I see is OMG and then some words I can't say. And then I saw Bills fans must be about to go crazy. And I was like, turn the game back on, and to see a comeback like that. I've always wanted to have a psychologist do a case study about not just an individual player falling apart, but a group We saw that in the Super Bowl when the Patriots came back and beat the Atlanta Falcons.
Right.
They were losing 28-3, because there's got to be a group moment where like the coach's face is like, are we blowing this? And the assistant coach is like, does coach think we're blowing this? And the quarterback's like, why is he making that face? Everybody's got to be, but no one's saying it. And it's fascinating to me.
Well, there's a difference between choking and being strangled. And the worst is when both are happening. So the New England Patriots were pretty good at the time. And so they were more than happy to help you choke, help you by strangling you. And so things like that happen. But sometimes it's just one team forgets how they got there, or they forget, all of a sudden they start saying, oh, when this game's over, I'll do the interview and I'll do the thing. And it's like, hey, you forgot about the next play. Right. Because that's all that mattered, was the next play and then the next play after that. So I don't know. I mean, sports is so tricky, and the way we get to all peer in and watch these physical acts and emotional plays play out, right in front of our eyes. I think it's incredible exposure for athletes, good and bad. All right, now last question. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Okay, go ahead and tell us who's going to play in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, so we can all put some money on that and become multimillionaires. Well, the winner of last night's game has the lead, but those two teams would have been my pick in the AFC. So we'll put Buffalo in front for now because they extracted that win. In the NFC, I don't know how people are going to beat Philly. They look like they just kind of grind you down. And they really do just look like they're unpleasant to play. Yeah. To the point where the league was about to make a rule saying one of their plays was illegal because no one can stop it. You're pushing us around. Cut make them line up the way we can tackle them. It's like when you used to go get your parents when like Tom won't get off me. It's like I can't get. Tell me let my arm go. Yeah. I would say the green teams. I would say after Philly, Green Bay looked really good. And, they seem set. Their Micah trade probably really helps them, but. We're not even through week 1 yet. We got to see what happens with the Vikings and Bears tonight. Yeah, I cannot wait. And plus, I just love that we're talking about these cold weather teams. Buffalo, I'm from Cleveland, Phillies, places that are miserable, but I feel like your football team needs to come. There needs to be a certain level of discomfort to get to that. Yes, to get to that other level of just like some fancy, cute team from Vegas rolls in like, we've been waiting on y'all. It's been -14 for a month and a half. Please step to the line. Well, Tom, I would like to say this is your first and hopefully not last visit to the show. I so appreciate you not only coming on, but being the first person in studio. It's amazing. The whole complex, the whole compound is something. I set it up just for you. I hope it works. But tell everybody where we can find you. Again, right now, just doing the other Tom Green podcast, and you can find that, I think, wherever you get podcasts, although Apple's been a little slow on the uptake. I know Spotify's got it, so look for it there. And then there's also videos in guerrilla sports, like a guerrilla fighter, not like a gorilla in the mist. Guerrilla sports, if you search their YouTube channel, you'll find it there. We had a great first show. Looking forward to this week with Vern Lundquist, so please check it out. I cannot wait, man. I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you. Colleagues, show your love for Tom Green. Michael Dean, I appreciate you. Take us out of here. Thanks